When a UE sends a data, or signaling to the eNodeB, the eNodeB RLC layer should acknowledge the transmitted data. There are three basic parameters that are used as part of the RLC procedures in uplink. The first parameter is poll retransmit timer for UE, that indicates the length of the polling PDU retransmission timer for the UE. This is a timer of how often the UE should send a request to the eNodeB on the status of all received packets. The second parameter is a couple of two similar parameters. The Poll PDU for UE indicates the UE's specific number of PDUs to trigger polling. And the Poll Byte for UE indicates the UE specific data volume threshold of PDUs to trigger polling. Both of those parameters define the thresholds that the eNodeB will use to send acknowledgements. The Poll Pdu parameter is valid only for RLC AM mode. The principle: the eNodeB will set a number of received PDUs. When that number is reached, the eNodeB will send an acknowledgement, or negative acknowledgement for all received packets. The last parameter is the most important parameter from a performance perspective. It is the max retransmission threshold for UE for a given packet. Once that maximum is reached without an acknowledgement, the link is considered lost with the eNodeB. Theses parameters to supervise the data traffic for a data radio bearer DRB. Similar parameters to supervise the signaling radio bearer SRB are defined as follows. The first parameter is SRB poll retransmit timer for UE. The SRB Poll PDU for UE indicates the UE's specific number of SRB PDUs to trigger polling. The SRB Poll Byte for UE indicates the UE specific data volume threshold of SRB PDUs to trigger polling. The max retransmission threshold for UE for a given SRB packet. Once that maximum is reached without an acknowledgement, the link is considered lost. The UE receive the parameters for RLC and RRC connection reconfiguration message. The RLC parameters for signaling radio bearer SRB and RLC configuration for data radio bearer DRB. Signaling or data is sent over the air interface from UE to eNodeB. The UE poll retransmit timer start in UE side, waiting for an acknowledge or an acknowledge of the sent data. If the data is received incorrectly, the eNodeB will send a NAC. If the UE poll timer expires and no response received from the eNodeB, the UE will resend again the PDU. Also, the UE can request for an acknowledgement of all received packets by sending the Poll Byte. Then the eNodeB will send a list of all received packets. If a sent packet is not received, it's considered lost. In both cases, the UE will retransmit the lost packets. This procedure will be repeated at the point the UE will give up on the packet. In this case, the UE declares that the radio link has failed. The RLC function is responsible for error correction through ARQ, protocol error detection, and recovery. UE receives the RLC status report from eNodeB after transmitting data. If UE do not receive the ACK message for relevant RLC packet, called PDU, or no response from eNodeB upon expiration of UE poll retransmit timer, the UE needs to retransmit the packet. If UE reaches the maximum retransmitting times, UE considers a radio link failure. Then UE starts T311 to reselect a cell for re-establishment procedure. When T311 expires and no suitable cell found, then the UE goes back to idle mode. To summarize, each time the UE sent to eNodeB a signaling message off a signaling radio bearer SRB, or an uplink data via a DRB bearer, the eNodeB acknowledges the reception by sending an RLC ACK, or NAC to the UE. If the UE receive a NAC, or not receive any feedback from the eNodeB for the transmitted data, during a period specified by the UE poll retransmit timer, the UE resend again the data, until the max retransmission is reached. Then the UE declares a radio link failure. The T311 timer start the radio link recovery to find a suitable cell for re-establishment. If the timer expires and no suitable cell found, then the UE goes to idle mode. If the eNodeB does not receive an RRC re-establishment message from the UE, the eNodeB release the eRAB, and increment by 1 the LTE eRAB abnormal release cause radio SRB reset, and DRB reset. The main causes of the radio link due to max uplink retransmission threshold, and expiration of T311 are: imbalance between uplink and downlink coverage. We excel coverage in the uplink. Uplink interference. The number of retransmission times is set to a small value. Timer T311 is set to a small value. Heavy loaded air interface. Overloaded CPUs on boards. Improper mobility policies, for example cell reselection threshold. The number of users in a cell exceeds the upper limit.